Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone. We are group the Gladiators would like to present about organizational culture. What is organizational culture? Organizational culture is the shared social knowledge within an organization regarding the rules, norms and values that shape the attitudes and behaviors of its employees. This is three components of organizational culture. Firstly, observable artifacts. Observable artifacts is the manifestations of an organization's culture that employees can easily see or talk about. There are six major types of artifacts. First, symbols. Symbols can be found throughout an organization, from its corporate logo to the images it places on its website to the uniforms its employees wear. Second, physical structures are the organization's buildings and internal office design. Second, language. Language reflects the jargon, slang, and slogans used within the walls of an organization. Fourth, stories. Stories consist of anecdotes, accounts, legends, and myths that are passed down from cohort to cohort within an organization. Fifth, rituals. Rituals are the daily or weekly planned routines that occur in an organization. Six, ceremonies are formal events generally performed in front of an audience of organizational members. Secondly, next, expose values. Expose values is the belief, philosophies, and norms that a company explicitly states. It publishes documents and verbal statements made to employees by managers. Lastly, basic underlying assumptions. The taken for granted beliefs and philosophies that are so ingrained that employees simply act on them rather than questioning the validity of their behavior in a given situation. General culture types. There are four types of general culture. Firstly, fragmented culture. Fragmented culture is an organizational culture type in which employees are distant and disconnected from one another. Secondly, mercenary culture. Mercenary culture is an organizational culture type in which employees think alike but are not friendly to another one. Thirdly, communal culture is an organizational culture type in which employees are friendly to one another but everyone thinks differently and does his or her own thing. Lastly, networked culture. Network culture is an organizational culture type in which employees are friendly to one another and all think alike. Specific culture types. Specific culture types also have four types. Firstly, customer service culture. Customer service culture is a specific culture type focused on service quality. The picture below is the service culture process. Secondly, creativity culture. Creativity culture is a specific culture type focused on fostering a creative atmosphere. Thirdly, safety culture. Safety culture is a specific culture type focused on the safety of employees. A positive safety culture has been shown to reduce accidents and increases safety-based citizenship behaviors. Fourthly, diversity culture. Diversity culture is a specific culture type focused on fostering or taking advantage of a diverse group of employees.
Culture strength. A high level of culture strength exists when employees definitely agree about the way things are supposed to happen within the organization. High consensus. And when their subsequent behaviors are consistent with those expectations. High intensity. A strong culture serves to unite and direct employees. Weak cultures exist when employees disagree about the way things are supposed to be or what's expected of them, meaning that there is nothing to unite or direct their attitude and actions. This is the culture's strength and subcultures, which shows strong culture and weak culture, while the organization subcultures and differentiated culture. As shown in the figure above, subcultures exist when the overall organizational culture is supplemented by another culture governing a more specific set of employees. Subcultures are more likely to exist in large organizations than they are in small companies. Most organizations don't mind having subcultures as long as they don't interfere with the value of the overall culture. However, However, when their values doesn't match those of the larger organization, we call subcultures con- countercultures. Countercultures can sometimes serve a useful purpose by challenging the values of the overall organization or signifying the need for change. Maintaining an organizational culture. First is attraction, selection, attrition, ASA. The ASA framework holds that potential employees will be attracted to organizations whose culture match their own personality, meaning that some potential job applicant won't apply due to a perceived lack of fit. In addition, organization will select candidates based on whether their personalities fit the culture, further weeding out potential misfit. Finally, those people who still don't fit will either be unhappy or ineffective when working in the organization, which lead to attrition. The second is socialization. In addition to taking advantage of attraction, selection, attrition, organization also maintain an organizational culture by shaping and molding new employees. Socialization is a primary process by which employees learn the social knowledge that enable them to understand and adapt to the organization culture. Most of the important information can be grouped into six dimensions. The first is goal and values, adoption of the spoken and unspoken goals and values of the organization. Performance proficiency is knowledge of the roles required and the tasks involved in the job. Third one is language, knowledge of the acronyms, slang, and jargon that are unique to the organization. History, information regarding the organization tradition such as customs and rituals. Politics, information regarding formal and informal work, relationship, and power structures within the organization. And the last one is people, successful and satisfying relationship with organizational member. Socialization happen in three relatively distinct stages. The first is the anticipatory stage happens prior to an employee spending even 1 second on the job. It starts the moment a potential employee hear the name of the organization. Anticipatory socialization begin as soon as potential employees develops an image of what it must be like to work for a given company. The second is the counter stage. The counter stage begins the day an employee start work. There are some things about an organization and its culture that can only be learned once a person become an organizational insider. During this stage, new employees compare the information they required as outsider during the anticipatory stage with what the organization is really look like now that they are insiders. Problems occur when the two sets of information don't quite match. This mismatch of information is called reality shock. Reality shock is best exemplified by the employee who says something to the effect of. And the final stage of socialization is one of the understanding and adaptation. During this stage, newcomers come to learn the content areas of socialization and internalize the norms and expected behaviors of the organization. The employee has adopted the goals and values of the organization, understand what the organization has been through, and can converse with others in the organization using technical language and specific terms that only insider would understand.
Next, changing an organizational culture. Changing an organization's culture is one of the most difficult leadership challenges. That's because an organization's culture comprises an interlocking set of goals, roles, processes, values, communications, practice, attitudes, and assumptions. The elements fit together as a mutual reinforcing system and combine to prevent any attempt to change it. That's why single fixed changes such as the introduction of teams or lean or agile or scrum or knowledge management or some new process may appear to make process for a while, but eventually the interlocking elements of the organizational culture take over and the change in inexorably drawn back into the existing organizational culture. Next, changes in leadership. Perhaps there is no bigger potential driver of culture than the leaders and top executives of managements organizations. Just as the founders and organizers of organizations set the tone and develop the culture of a new company, subsequent CEOs and presidents leave their mark on the culture. Many times, leaders are expected simply to sustain the culture that has already been created. At other times, leaders have to be a driver force for change as the environment around the organization shifts. In fact, there is some recent evidence that CEOs whose leadership style are different from their company's culture are more effective. Next, mergers and acquisitions. Merging two companies with two distinct cultures is a surefire way to change the culture in an organization. Ideally, a new culture would be created out of a compromise in which the best of both companies is present, represented by the new culture. There are many stories that have been arisen from the mergers of companies with very different cultures. Next, why do some organizations have different culture than others? As shown in figure below, attraction, selection, attrition process, socializing, changes in leadership, and mergers and acquisition shape the three components of organizational culture. Basic underlying assumptions, exposed value, and observable artifacts, specific combination of those culture components then given rise to both general and specific culture type. For example, culture can be categorized on the basis of solidarity and sociability into fragment, mercenary, communal, and network type. Culture can also be categorized into more specific types, such as customer service, safety, diversity, and creativity. Finally, those general and specific types can be further classified according to the strength of the culture. Taken together, this process explains what it's like within the hallways of given organizations. Next, the importance of organizational culture. Unity. It is not size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Mark Twain said in one of his famous quotes, an organization, irrespective of its actual size, whether it stands up with 10 to 15 employees or an organization with a bigger workforce, is strengthened by its unity. The unity results from a solid organization culture, a set of shared values and principles that the member abide by in every decision that they take. The similarity of thought and action enables the employees of a company to work synergistically to help each other in their goals and to stay strong as a group in order to fight against the rival force. Secondly, business success. One organization that has a valuable organizational culture is Google. One look at the Google product and compasses across the globe, few interaction with its employee, and we would know what the company stands for: creativity and innovativeness. Building and maintaining Google's culture requires relentless effort. As Google's developed advocate Don Dodge explained in this blog post, but the company very well knows that the secret to its success is its people and the culture they create and maintain. Next. Thirdly, stability. Lack of purpose and motivation is one of the major reasons why people are often dissatisfied at work and why they quit their job and look for greener pastures. Organizational culture, by its very nature, ensures that the purpose of its members are aligned with the purpose of the organization, and the compatibility of goals and way of thinking drives the member to perform well, be self-directed, and be loyal to organization they belong to. And lastly, sense of direction. When an organization has laid out its value, beliefs, and goals, its employees have a clearer direction to work towards. They can discern between right and wrong, important and unimportant, and its clarity ensure a focused approach to work and a productive use of the organization's time and resources.